Hey everyone, and welcome to the channel. I'm Andy, and this is Mixing Up Tiki. And today on the channel, we're going to be taking a look at a cocktail that I've already done on this channel. So then, Andy, why are we doing it again? Well, that's because we're going to do a showdown. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Port Light. We're going to be making 3 different versions of them and tasting them side by side. So, let's do this. Now, as far as classic Tiki cocktails go, the Port Light is a bit of an anomaly. First off, it doesn't use rum, it uses bourbon as its base. And secondly, we see 2 different, they're a little similar, but very different recipes coming out of 2 different locations. So who's right? Who created it first? Now, on the one hand, you have the version from the Kahiki in Columbus, Ohio. Now, this is the one that I built my version off of in an earlier episode that I will link up here and in the description down below. On the other hand, we have the Trader Vicx version, which swaps out one of the main ingredients for something completely different. And honestly, if you ask me, I think it's that swap that pulls it very far away from the Port Light. Because originally, the Port Light was called the Port Light because it resembled the light on the port side of ships. Ships used to have 2 lights. One on the port side that was red and one on the starboard side that was green. That way at night you could tell which way a ship was traveling. And in fact, I've made my own starboard light cocktail as well, and if you want to see that one, I'll leave a link up here and in the description below. And yet we now have a 3rd contender for the Port Light. Coming out of the new Tropical Standard book by Garrett Richard, he has his own version of it called Red Sky at Night. And so we're going to be taking a look at all 3 of these versions, tasting them side by side, and seeing, well, which one I prefer. So let's get started with the version that I've already made on this channel, and that's the version with Grenadine from the Kahiki in Columbus, Ohio. To make the Kahiki Port Light, you are going to need bourbon, Grenadine, Passionfruit Syrup, and lemon juice. Now, all 3 of these cocktails are going to be flash blended, so I'm going to be using my Hamilton Beach blender. If you don't happen to have one, feel free to whip shake these for about 5 to 8 seconds. It'll work just as well. But let's get started with the Kahiki version, so grab a shaking tin. In your shaking tin, add 1 ounce or 30 milliliters of lemon juice. Next, add a 1/4 ounce or 7.5 milliliters of Grenadine. Now add a 1/2 ounce or 15 milliliters of Passionfruit Syrup. And finally, 1.5 ounces or 45 milliliters of bourbon. Now we're going to add about 8 ounces of pebble ice to our shaking tin. Now we're going to flash blend for about 5 seconds. Now grab a chilled Collins glass and open pour in. Now we're going to top with more pebble ice and serve with a straw. Alright, now we've made the Kahiki version, let's move on to our Trader Vicx version. This recipe actually comes out of Smuggler's Cove, which if you haven't bought Smuggler's Cove yet and you're watching this channel, I don't know what you're doing. Go out, buy your own book. I'll leave an affiliate link in the description below, but it's probably one of my top 3 Tiki books that you should own. To make our Trader Vicx Port Light, you are going to need bourbon, Passionfruit Syrup, honey syrup, lemon juice, and egg white. In your shaking tin, add 2 ounces of bourbon. Now add 1 egg white. Now we're going to dry flash blend that without any ice for 10 seconds. Now we're going to add 1 ounce or 30 milliliters of lemon juice. Now add 1/2 ounce or 15 milliliters of Passionfruit Syrup. Now add 3/4 ounce or 22.5 milliliters of honey syrup. Now add 12 ounces of pebble ice to your shaking tin. Flash blend for another 5 seconds. Grab a footed Pilsner glass and open pour in. And serve with a straw. And there you have it, our Trader Vicx Port Light. We've got 1 more to go. Alright, so last but not least, we have Garrett Richard's Red Sky at Night, which attempts to take the 2 recipes that we just made, the Kahiki and the Trader Vicx, and combine them into one. To make Garrett Richard's Red Sky at Night, you are going to need Rittenhouse Rye, honey syrup, Grenadine, Passionfruit Puree, lemon juice, egg white, aromatic bitters, and salt solution. In a shaking tin, add 5 drops of salt solution, 2 dashes of aromatic bitters, 3/4 ounce or 22.5 milliliters of lemon juice, 1/2 ounce or 15 milliliters of Passionfruit Puree, 1/2 ounce or 15 milliliters of honey syrup, half an ounce or 15 milliliters of Grenadine, 2 ounces or 60 milliliters of Rittenhouse Rye, finally add half an ounce of egg white or approximately half of an egg white. Now add 8 ounces of pebble ice to your shaking tin. Flash blend for about 5 seconds. Grab a chilled 15-ounce Collins glass and add 4 ounces of pebble ice to your Collins glass. Now open pour in. No need for a garnish, serve with a straw. Alright, so there we have it, all 3 of our different versions of the Port Light. Let's give them a side-by-side taste. First up, we're going to start with the Kahiki. That is a tart cocktail. The bourbon is front and center. There's a big rush of passion fruit and the lemon, and it's making me kind of pucker my mouth a little bit. Makes me feel like if I drink one or more of these, I'm probably going to get some heartburn or an indigestion. Alright, let's move on to the Trader Vicx. Okay, not nearly as tart as the Kahiki. That honey is definitely present. It's overcovering the bourbon a little bit. It's got a nice texture to it from the egg white, so I really do enjoy that. But it's kind of overly diluted and one note. Next up, let's try the Red Sky at Night by Garrett Richard. Oh, so first off, it is a different base spirit. While it is in the whiskey family, Garrett decided to go with rye instead of bourbon that we see in the other two. Bourbon, because of its majority corn base, is going to be a little bit sweeter, whereas rye is made from a rye base. Now, Rittenhouse is a higher corn percentage rye, so it is on the sweeter side of ryes, but because it still is a rye, there's a wonderful spice note that's coming along with it, and that spice is being accentuated by the aromatic bitters that we used. The rest of the flavors play really well together. The Passionfruit Puree, which is a deviation from the Passionfruit Syrup that we see in the other two, is a nice change of pace. It's not overly sweet, and it actually tempers the passionfruit flavor much better than what we see in the Kahiki version, where it's pretty much front and center. The Grenadine's doing a nice job of adding a lovely color to this thing. Now, these are called Port Lights, so in my mind, they should be red. The Kahiki hits that, Trader Vic's not so much. Then we've got the honey syrup, which is playing really, really well with the Passionfruit Puree. If you've never actually made Passionfruit honey syrup, I highly recommend it because it is quite delicious. At the end of it all, which one do I prefer? Well, honestly, I prefer Garrett Richards. I think the Kahiki is overly tart. I think the Trader Vic's is overly diluted, but I love the texture, the color, and the flavor profiles that we're getting from Garrett Richards. So that's it for today's video. Now again, this is my personal opinion. Your mileage may vary, but I would love to see if you guys want to do this side by side and what your results come out to be. Well, that's it for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed this side by side comparison, and if you did, please make sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, follow me over on Instagram at MixingUpTiki. If you've made it this far, good news, you get to hear what we're doing next week. I've been talking to Matt Pietrek about Martinique rum, specifically old school Martinique rum versus new school Martinique rum. So next week, we're going to be comparing the closest thing that we can find nowadays to old school Martinique rum versus new school Martinique rum. I'm going to see if there's a difference and if I prefer one over the other. So stay tuned. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, and until next week, you know the deal. Akoli Maluna. Now, which one do I take a sip of to end this video? We'll go with Garrett Richards.